Two men, two geniuses, one friendship that was supposed to change the world, but instead ended in betrayal, rivalry, and silence. Imagine this. The fathers of modern psychology once sat face to face for 13 hours straight, talking about the mysteries of the mind. But within a few years, they would become bitter enemies. This is the shocking, untold truth of Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud, a story of friendship, obsession, and the battle for the human soul. The meeting that changed everything. In the early 1900s, Sigmund Freud was already a famous name. His theories about dreams, repression, and the unconscious had made him a revolutionary figure. To many, he wasn't just a doctor. He was a prophet of the mind. Meanwhile, in Switzerland, a young psychiatrist named Carl Gustav Jung was rising quickly. Brilliant, curious, and bold, Jung was fascinated by the hidden layers of the psyche. In 1907, Jung finally traveled to Vienna to meet Freud. What happened next is legendary. The two men talked for 13 hours without stopping. Freud immediately recognized Jung's talent and saw him as the perfect successor, someone who could carry the torch of psychoanalysis long after Freud was gone. From that day, their bond grew strong. Freud called Jung his crown prince, while Jung admired Freud as a father figure. They exchanged letters, shared ideas, and built the foundations of early psychoanalysis together. But like every story of power and vision, cracks soon began to appear. Freud's core philosophy. Freud's psychology revolved around one radical idea. Human behavior is driven by sexual energy, the libido. According to him, our unconscious mind is filled with repressed desires. Dreams are disguised expressions of these hidden wishes. Even mental illness could be explained by unresolved sexual conflicts. This was shocking for the early 20th century, but Freud was confident. He believed sex was the root of all psychological life. To Jung, however, this explanation felt narrow. He respected Freud but began to wonder, could the human psyche really be reduced to just sexuality? Isn't there something deeper, something more universal shaping us? Jung's expanding vision. Jung's imagination pushed psychology into new territory. He introduced concepts that would forever change the field. The collective unconscious, a hidden layer of the mind shared by all humanity, filled with ancient memories and symbols. Archetypes, universal figures like the hero, the mother, the shadow, recurring characters found in myths, religions, and dreams across every culture. Individuation, the journey of becoming your true self by embracing both your light and your darkness. For Jung, psychology wasn't just about treating illness. It was about understanding the soul, finding meaning, and connecting with something greater than ourselves. To Freud, these ideas sounded mystical, unscientific, even dangerous, the cracks in the relationship. The tension between them grew slowly but surely. During their travels together, Jung noticed how protective Freud was of his theories. Freud wanted loyalty. He once told Jung, "Promise me, never abandon the sexual theory. It is the most essential thing we have." To Jung, this was alarming. Science, he believed, should be about truth, not blind loyalty. The letters they exchanged grew colder. Their conversations became debates. Their friendship began to feel like a battlefield. In 1912, Jung published Psychology of the Unconscious. In it, he challenged Freud directly, arguing that human motivation cannot be explained by sexuality alone. This was the turning point, the breakup. By 1913, the bond had snapped. Freud saw Jung's rebellion as betrayal. Jung saw Freud's rigidity as authoritarian. They stopped writing to each other. They stopped speaking. The father and son relationship was gone. Freud continued to lead the psychoanalytic movement, building a loyal circle of followers. Jung struck out on his own, creating what he called analytical psychology. But their conflict wasn't just personal, it was symbolic. It represented two worldviews colliding. Freud believed in reductionism, boiling the mind down to one driving force. Jung believed in expansion, that the psyche is vast, mysterious, and filled with many layers. This battle of ideas still echoes in psychology, philosophy, and even self-help today. After the split, Jung's dark night. The breakup with Freud wasn't just professional. For Jung, it was deeply personal. He had lost not only a mentor but also a father figure. The separation threw him into what he later called his confrontation with the unconscious. For several years, Jung went through a period of intense inner turmoil. He had terrifying dreams and visions. In one vision, he saw Europe covered in blood, a haunting image that eerily foreshadowed the First World War. But instead of running away from these experiences, Jung dove deeper. He recorded his visions in a secret book, later known as the Red Book. Here, he explored conversations with symbolic figures from his unconscious, images that would later form the foundation of his theories. This period was painful, but it transformed Jung. While Freud built an empire of followers, Jung was building something else, a new psychology rooted in myth, spirituality, and the search for meaning. Freud's final years. Freud, meanwhile, remained the strict commander of psychoanalysis. He had loyal disciples, but he also fought with many who disagreed with him. He never forgave Jung. In Freud's eyes, Jung had abandoned the sacred cause of psychoanalysis and betrayed him personally. Freud spent his later years refining his theories about the ego, the ID, and the superego, and continuing to emphasize the role of repression and desire. His circle remained devoted, but history would remember him as both a genius and a controversial figure. In 1939, Freud died in London after a long struggle with cancer of the jaw. He remained intellectually active until the very end, still convinced that his theories about the unconscious would shape the future. Jung's rise and new ideas. While Freud's legacy was solidified, Jung's influence was spreading in new directions. Jung introduced terms and ideas that moved beyond psychiatry and into culture, literature, and even religion. His concepts of archetypes and the collective unconscious inspired artists, filmmakers, and writers. His idea of the shadow, the hidden dark side of our personality, became a key framework for self-reflection and personal growth. Jung also emphasized dreams as more than just wish fulfillment. To him, dreams were messages from the unconscious, offering guidance, warnings, and wisdom. Where Freud saw suppressed desires, Jung saw symbols of transformation. And unlike Freud, who dismissed religion as illusion, Jung believed spirituality was essential for psychological health. He argued that without meaning, the human soul suffers, no matter how much material success we have. The legacy of the rivalry. The clash between Freud and Jung wasn't just about theory, it was about worldview. Freud reduced the psyche to a single driving force, desire. Jung expanded the psyche into a vast universe of symbols, myths, and hidden truths. Both perspectives changed the world. Freud gave us the language of repression, neurosis, and the unconscious. Jung gave us archetypes, shadow work, and the search for the self. Even today, you can see their influence everywhere. Therapy techniques inspired by Freud, movies, myths, and modern self-help influenced by Jung. In fact, whenever you hear about finding your true self or facing your shadow, you're hearing Jung's voice echoing across time, the human story beneath it all. But beneath all the theories and concepts, this story is also a human tragedy. Two men who once admired and trusted each other ended up divided forever. It's almost poetic. Freud, the man of reason and science, clashing with Jung, the man of symbols and spirit. Their friendship was a spark that lit the field of psychology. Their rivalry was the fire that forced it to grow in multiple directions. Would psychology have been the same if they had stayed united? Maybe not. Sometimes division creates diversity, and the world benefits from it. Why it still matters today. More than a century later, the Freud-Jung split still matters. It's not just about psychology textbooks, it's about how we see ourselves. Do you believe your life is shaped mainly by hidden desires and past traumas? That's Freud. Or do you believe your life is part of a greater story, filled with universal symbols and a search for meaning? That's Jung. Most of us live in the tension between the two. We are products of biology and desire, but we are also seekers of meaning and purpose. And maybe that's the untold truth. The world didn't need just Freud or just Jung, it needed both. The story of Jung and Freud isn't just history, it's a mirror of the human mind itself, torn between desire and meaning, between science and spirit. They started as friends, became rivals, and left behind two legacies that still shape our lives today. So next time you wonder why you dream, why you struggle, or why you search for meaning, remember, you're walking the path that Freud and Jung carved out, together and apart.